Well, a warm welcome to this talk. Now, there is some useful material coming out of the UK COVID inquiry, but a lot of it is, shall we say, slipping between the cracks of media coverage. So I want to bring you something in a little detail today, and it is really quite enlightening. So let's get straight down to it. This is the full testimony of Mrs. Kate Scott. UK COVID-19 Module 4 hearing, 15th of January in the afternoon. And she represents Vaccine Injured Bereaved UK. This is the group that she is a member of. Now, some of the things she says here are really quite enlightening. Let's look at her statement first of all, and then we'll look at her video, some of her video testimony. So, for example, paragraph 10 of her statement. Now, this is available. This is part of the. This is now public domain. It's from the COVID inquiry website. We hope that our participation in this inquiry will result in three key outcomes. Firstly, to highlight the fact of vaccine injury and bereavement. So this has occurred. We need to get this out, highlight the facts of the injury and, of course, the bereavement. Secondly, to remove the stigma suffered by those who are vaccine injured or bereaved. There should be no stigma from any medical condition. And thirdly, to compel the government and pharmaceutical companies to look again at how to deal with the inconvenient fact of vaccine injury and bereavement and the lives it has shattered. So, pretty strong language there and quite understandable outcomes, I think you would agree. A couple more paragraphs from a statement before we move on to the video and some more discussion. Paragraph 16, she says this. The first victims to die or suffer serious side effects from the AstraZeneca vaccine should have rung an alarm with the Medicines and Healthcare Products Regulatory Agency and the UK government that there was a serious problem. Serious problem. However, she says no action was taken. Hard to understand looking back, isn't it? It really is hard to understand why no action was taken. Why would they not take action? Let me know if you think of any reasons why they might not have taken action. It was only when other European countries raised the alarm of a rare, serious side effect causing devastating blood clotting and low platelet condition that the UK admitted there was an issue. There was very little information released to the public about this risk, and people, some of whom were very young, continued to be harmed. These are direct quotes from her statement. And just one more paragraph, I think, before we look at our video. It's very extensive. This statement is entirely legible. It's not written in medical technical language at all. Paragraph 149. MHRA should be independent and not funded by pharmaceutical companies. Yes, I would agree. I'm sure you would agree. Should be independent. Should be independent and not funded by pharmaceutical companies. Members of Parliament and members of the MHRA and Joint Committee for Vaccination and Immunity should not be able to hold shares in pharmaceutical companies to remove any potential conflict of interest. No need to say anything else. Now, just before we go to the video, a good analysis by Biophenom on Substack. Now, following this inquiry as a full-time job, Biophenom is pretty well following it as a full-time job. So good write-ups there. It really is. Some of it is remarkably difficult to listen to. Some of the stuff you've got to sit through. We'll leave that there. As of the 30th of November 2024, 17,519 claims made to the vaccine damage compensation scheme, and only 194 were notified they were entitled to payment. Quite incredible. And of the 194, 55 of the claims were awarded an outcome had been communicated were made on someone who had died. So this scheme clearly is struggling, in my view. 17,519 claims, 194 notified, and that is as of the 30th of November 2024 from Biophenomena source there. But this is based on freedom of information requests, as far as I can gather. So these seem to be put together on what do they know. I'll put the link there so you can assess its validity for yourself. The list shows specific conditions that have been identified in medical records of those awarding payments. Now, most of these outcomes are related to, most of these adverse outcomes are related to the AstraZeneca. We really need more data on the Pfizer and Moderna. And in the United States, of course, Bobby Kennedy Jr. is going through this. I had no idea the process was so long and convoluted to confirm presidential appointments. But if he's nominated, I'm very optimistic we're going to get seriously exhaustive data released from the United States, so we'll know much more about adverse reactions from Pfizer and Moderna, as well as the ones which are now really patently obvious from AstraZeneca. Hopefully. Right. Medical records. Acute allergic reaction, anaphylaxis, bacterial pneumonia, Bell's palsy, facial palsy, bilateral sequential optic neuropathy. I'm not going to go into all these. Capillary leak syndrome, chronic inflammatory demyelinating, that means loss of the myelin sheaths, and it's this particular polyneuropathies. Guillain-Barré syndrome, which of course causes paralysis, immune thrombocytopenia, myocardial infarction. Of course, we know this is a particular recognised adverse event with the mRNA vaccines. Hopefully more to come on that soon. Myocarditis, pericarditis, pneumonia, embolism, stroke, CVA, transverse myelitis, vaccine-induced vasculitis, cerebral venous sinus thrombosis. And there, as I say, they're all on this, what do they know, website. Pity so much information in the UK has only come to light through freedom of information requests. I would have preferred much more openness and transparency. You may have ideas why that's not occurred. Right, let's look now at the full testimony from Mrs. Kate Scott. Well, not the full testimony. The full testimony link is here. We're going to play about a 12-minute excerpt from that now with some of the highlights. Let's get on to that now.
And the reason you're a member of the group is because of the experience that your husband, Jamie, had following vaccination.
Yep.
Could you tell us, please, about the impact on Jamie as well as the impact on you and your family?
I can, yeah. Just one last thing about VBK, though, is that the primary causes of the injuries in our group are vaccine-induced thrombotic thrombocytopenia, VIT, Guillain-Barré syndrome, vasculitis, and more. They're all confirmed conditions, so there's a range of conditions. My husband Jamie had VIT, vaccine-induced thrombotic thrombocytopenia. He is a walking miracle. Every day I'm filled with gratitude that he's still alive, but his brain injury is the size of a credit card. His relationship with me, and mostly his relationship with our children, will never be the same again. And I have this constant conflict of that gratitude with the grief that goes with how different life is. And then the guilt for the others in our group who I know would just want 5 more minutes with their loved one. Jamie is amazing. He was in a coma for 4 weeks and 5 days. He's had significant brain surgery, and he was in rehab for 124 in total. When he came home, he was able to watch our son's nativity, but in a very different way. He's blind in both of his eyes in his upper right quadrant. He'll never drive. He'll never live totally independently. He can't look after our children for long periods of time independently. He can't split and divide his attention. He has no high functioning ability. He has short-term memory loss. He has processing information challenges. He has auditory challenges. He has chronic fatigue. He has severe headaches. He's had over 300 medical appointments since we've been home, and they're ongoing. And just everything is different, from how he responds to situations, to how he shows his emotions, to how he interacts with our children.
From what you've said, that he is unable to work.
Yeah, he'll never be able to work again. He had a really high functioning, high stressful, multi-international job that he loved, and he was just as cool as a cucumber. He balanced me out, and now he's got all these new feelings, and he often describes that he can see this video playing in his head and how he should respond and how should things come out, but the bit in between is it all gets muddled. So he's got aphasia, which means that sometimes he can't find or think of the right word, which might mean he calls our children the wrong name, or he'll go upstairs to get something and come down with something completely different, or he'll go to the shop with some support and he'll forget what he's gone to get and come out with different things that don't make up a shopping list that you can't cook anything with. But every day he tries, and it's tiring, and we're grateful that he's alive, but at the moment he doesn't feel like he's living, and he was full of so much life. I don't think that doing the thing the state asked you should put us at risk of losing our house, or people in our group having to use a food bank, having to move house because they can no longer afford it. That's just extra trauma to what we're already struggling through.
And in your witness statement, you set out some figures you obtained as a result of a Freedom of Information Act request, which show that as of the 3rd of October 2023, there had been 7,544 claims related to COVID-19 vaccines, and only 3,519 claimants had been notified of an outcome. 361 claims had been awaiting a decision for more than 12 months. Of those, 150 claims had been awaiting a decision for more than 18 months.
Yep. And awfully, the data has changed, and those numbers are worse. So as of the 30th of November 2024, there's 17,519 claims to the VDPS. Only 194 of those have been notified that they're entitled to the payment. 416 people have been told that they are unsuccessful because although causation is met, they are not, inverted commas, disabled enough. And of that, there's 1,027 people still waiting 12 months later. Within that, 438, 18 months, and 126 are still waiting nearly 3 years later for the outcome of their claim.
What sort of impact is this having on your members, the amount of time they're having to wait for these claims to be processed?
Well, most of them have lost their jobs, so paying mortgages, paying rent, feeding your children, feeding your family. Some people there, Dr. Stephen Wright, he died from VIT, one of the first within our group. His wife has lost his income. She looked after the family and brought up a beautiful household that's now without a daddy and without fair income.
Another aspect of the scheme is the 60% disablement criteria in order to qualify for a payment under the scheme. Could you explain to us the problems that has posed for your members?
A percentage disablement is also somewhat offensive, I feel, but regardless of if it's 10% or 59% or Jamie way over 60% or dead, I guess that's 100% disabled. There's no compensation if you fall below that. We only saw yesterday in the video the consequence of being told, sorry, you're only 55% disabled. It's awful, it's devastating, and then there's nothing for no one to help. Someone in our group was told they were only 20% disabled. It took another year to do the mandatory reversal, and then they were told, oh, actually, you're 90% disabled. Congratulations, here you go. There's other people who are 59% disabled in our group, and only if you've got the strength and will to carry on can you fight that system that is so set against us. If you are this unlucky number or this rare number, but bearing in mind, for our group, it's not rare. Statistics are interesting, aren't they? Within our group, 100% of the people in it was not safe and effective. That is the fact within our group, and we have always had the truth on our side, and the truth is for everyone in our group, and the others who don't even know about our group yet, the vaccine was not safe and effective, and this was mostly people who were fit and healthy. Jamie didn't take a medicine in his life. He surfed, he ran, we played rugby and football with the children, all things that he's now unable to do and will never be able to do again. We were known as being the couple the last two on the dance floor, and this birthday I danced on my own because he's not able to be in that loud, noisy environment.
Sorry to interrupt, I really am, but I think I'm going to have to stop you because it's really difficult for me venturing into the area of where we're talking about scientific evidence and acceptable safety levels. That's something we'll discuss with the experts, and I'm really sorry, but it's more of a scientific evidence-based as opposed to just the individual circumstances.
No, that's what we're asking. We want you to look at that, and no one has told us what that is, and if it is acceptable, why is there not a fair compensation scheme? I'm not a scientist, but Boris Johnson wrote to me and told me we are not a statistic, we would not be ignored, and all the time all we're told is we're very rare and we are a statistic, and I'm here to say that no, we're not. Our lives are destroyed, and everyone in the audience today who's to support us, so are theirs. It's not just my story. There's many others who have had their voices silenced and told that we are an acceptable safety profile and get on with your life.
At that point, I totally understand. I was just trying to avoid going down the path of analysing at this stage.
Yeah, no, I wasn't trying to do that. Yeah. Thank you.
Clearer communication about the risks associated with the vaccines, and that they should have been communicated to healthcare professionals and the public so that people could be on the lookout for the types of symptoms that could arise. Is that right?
Yeah, so earlier action and clearer risk communication, we think, could have saved lives. People within our group called ambulances 3 times to be told it was a migraine. It was only on the 4th, when they were seized in bed, that they were taken to hospital, and that was because the risk and the framework had not been communicated to everyone. Or you were not allowed to even suggest that vaccines caused injury and bereavement. Posts were removed online of death certificates saying it was misinformation. Accounts were closed, and there was no one to say, hang on a minute, if we know it's going to be that it's accepted that there's risk, there should be a safety process of emotionally and medically supporting these people and helping them afterwards.
Another area of concern for your members is the post-marketing surveillance system in the UK, including the yellow card scheme, and people being aware of that scheme and reporting properly through the scheme. You'd like to see that examined as part of the inquiry, is that right?
Yeah, as far as we can see, nothing happens after you input that data. So Jamie had a yellow card. Many in our group have got yellow cards. No one has ever contacted me about it. No one has followed up. People's have got lost. People's weren't registered. Sheila Ward's husband, Stephen Ward, who died, she had to contact them to say, oh, just to let you know, he's passed away. He died from his condition because no one followed up. And again, in other countries, after only one instance of this particular condition, and there are more confirmed conditions, but for VIT, for example, one instance of it meant that they could pause it and they reviewed it to say, what's happening here? Other countries changed much quicker on what age range was being offered that particular vaccine.
So this is the speed of the regulatory response in the UK to the blood clot safety issue. That's something that you want the inquiry to examine. Is that right?
Yeah, because they have acted quick. Same for Guillain-Barré syndrome. My understanding is the quicker you're helped, the better the outcomes are. So yeah, VIT is my expertise area because that's what happened to Jamie. But there are other conditions that are the same. People were not listened to when they said, I think this is because of the vaccine. If they had been, and if medical people were able to get the right pathways in, then people's outcomes could have been better.
You also question whether the yellow card scheme is adequate in that it is a voluntary reporting scheme. Would you like to see some assessment on the part of the inquiry as to whether it is useful to have a mandatory reporting scheme?
Yeah, again, I'm not an expert, but I think it should be mandatory. If I turned up to A&E, they asked mandatory questions of things, and that should have been one of them. You know, have you had a vaccine, which is a foreign thing within your body within a certain amount of time, because especially for certain conditions like Jamie, there's a time frame that is crucial that it only happens in, and if you catch it quickly, outcomes might have been better. Many people, Zion, Lisa Shaw, might still be with us. We will never know that, but had it been communicated properly, then they might have got the right help and support they needed quicker.
To Scott, we have gone over a large number of concerns in the course of your evidence, and I want to thank you for the clarity of your answers and for sharing your personal experiences
Can I just ask one really last quick thing, is when you speak to all the other experts, the scientists, the pharmaceuticals and the government, is just remember that we are people. So they can easily omit or not include or not discuss vaccine injury. We know for a fact, I am the fact, these people over here are the fact. It did happen, and they cannot continue to ignore it. Sorry is a strong word, and helping us would make a difference.
Thank you very much indeed, Mrs. Scott. I'm truly sorry to hear about your husband's
Thank you.
condition. It must have been extraordinarily difficult for
It
you,
still
for
is,
him,
yeah.
for the children.
Thank you.
And I do understand your concerns. I may have intervened about one aspect. That's only because I think that's for expert witnesses. But I do understand your concerns, and certainly the point you make about your human beings. Of course you are.
Yeah.
And I shall be examining the issues that you've raised very carefully.
Thank you, because
So
there's
thank you
children
very-
without daddies and children with disabled daddies, and just remember that when they try and pretend that we're not important, we are important, and we're part of this pandemic story.
I do understand.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Well, I've been in nurse education and clinical practice for 45 years, and still some of these individual stories really get through to you. Mrs. Kate Scott about her husband, Jamie, the brain injury he suffered and the massive implications that come from that. And yet she still feels the guilt that others in her group just wanted 5 more minutes with their loved ones. The massive financial and social implications of the brain injury as well. And why is it that so many things only come to light from freedom of information requests? The 60% disability criteria. Someone's disability assessment went from 20 to 90%. How can that be based on anything that's objective? And how on earth, given that the criteria for payment is 60% disability, how on earth can a clinician adjudicate someone is only 59% disabled? Why not 58? Why not 61? How can you be 59% disabled? I don't understand that. I simply don't understand it. For the members of the group, the vaccines were 100% not safe and effective. Lack of risk communication was highlighted. Neurological conditions dismissed as migraines until the person involved started fitting, convulsing. And she said, we are people, not statistics. There's children without daddies. And I must say, counsel here did seem to do a good job, the questioning counsel. He didn't intervene, he wasn't intervening all the time, and allowed Mrs. Scott to speak. This woman has earned the right to speak, and he gave her that right. Let me know what you think about the comments from the chair of the inquiry. I would have preferred Mrs. Scott not to be interrupted, but that's just my personal preference. Let me know what you think. But a pity a lot of this is falling between the cracks, as we said, of media coverage. Yeah, powerful testimony. Not well covered, unfortunately. Yeah, it's powerful stuff. We'll leave it there. Thank you for watching.